some more information is coming out on Bilderberg since the conference ended. What have you got for us?
Well, this is firsthand information, pretty much my own research across the board. I was looking around at some people whose names are not real common at Bilderberg and looking at the economic angle, since I mentioned Congressman Jason Smith in last week's report, head of the Ways and Means Committee, they write the tariff laws and so on. I thought, well, what else economic might have happened? And there was a speech, and we'll show this here, by the European Commissioner Maria Albuquerque for the high-level conference on European financial integration. We've talked before about European central banks integrating and fiscal integration in the EU over the years. Well, this is more of that. Advancing the Savings and Investment Union, very important, jointly organized by the European Commission and the European Central Bank. And what I've got here on this is that this was on June 12th, just before Maria Albuquerque left Portugal, where she's from, and went to Stockholm for Bilderberg. And this speech, of course, would be of particular interest to some of the other attendees, which included the Bank for International Settlements GM-elect Pablo Hernandez, World Economic Forum President Boris Brenda, and the Eurogroup President Pascal Donahue, as well as the European Investment Bank President Nadia Calvino. And Maria Albuquerque also noted that financial integration could not be more relevant. Today's discussions on the eve of Bilderberg are centered on the Savings and Investment Union, or SIU, and she says the political momentum is behind that. Now, they're talking also about a more power-concentrated single supervision of the Savings and Investment Union, and so on and so forth. And what they're saying is that this would help shore up the more fragmented capital markets in the European Union compared to the U.S. capital markets by tapping in or leveraging or somehow using the savings of Europeans, typical everyday Europeans' bank account savings, to put financial muscle behind this.
Mark, sorry, just so that I'm understanding this. Obviously, in the 2008 financial crash, we saw Greece and other countries experiencing bail-ins and people's money effectively being nicked in order to shore up the failing financial system. We're talking about a formalization of this process.
It does look that way. It smells like that. It remains to be seen a little bit. But yeah, there was those negative interest rates. There were people in Cyprus having their bank accounts siphoned. And at that time, the viceroy overseeing the Cyprus situation was a longtime Bilderberg attendee, Joseph Ackerman, out of Germany, a banker, we may recall. At any rate, Maria Albuquerque revealed something very interesting in that report that I cited the title of a moment ago. At the end of 2023, EU financial assets totaled 34.5 trillion euro with a T, which sounds totally amazing to me. I thought maybe it was a typo, but that's what she wrote. Household financial assets in the EU, totaling 34.5 trillion euro. Of that, around 11.5 trillion euro sits in cash and low yield deposits. And there's no surefire way of knowing whether EU citizens, will directly benefit from this. Would they get an investment prospectus in the mail saying we're going to invest your savings money this way? And is it going to be totally voluntary? These are some of the questions. Would they actually get dividends? Would their money bring returns? Or would it be something much more underhanded, like you mentioned a moment ago, Mike? And the publication GIS Reports, which is more or less an impartial journal, also expressed some concern about this, as highlighted in the European Commission's competitiveness compass. The EU will require an annual investment of up to 800 billion euros by 2030 to modernize what's called its chronically distressed economy. These figures stem from a September 2024 report by career European banker and past Bilderberg attendee Mario Draghi, which underscored the urgency for groundbreaking innovation across the board. And so it does appear highly possible that European citizen savings could be pilfered in some way to shore up these fragmented capital markets in the EU and to help EU meet its investment goals, its investment future, you might say, with regards to all the defense spending that it's being called on to make. So that this is something very, very curious, something that deserves very close attention. Now, there's another aspect of this concerning Congressman Jason Smith. I got a letter back because when you see the Bilderberg attendance list, you have to keep in mind that that's more of the invitation list. It doesn't necessarily confirm that everyone actually showed up. But Bilderberg wrote me back saying, as it shows here, Congressman Jason Smith did indeed attend, as mentioned in the participant list that was published, and EU Commissioner Maria Albuquerque also attended as listed. I wanted to make sure of that because this Savings and Investment Union thing that I cited was announced in Portugal right before Stockholm became the site of the 2025 Bilderberg meeting. Moving on from there, it's interesting also that Jason Smith was there along with the EU counterpart in a way, Maros Sefcovic. He's the EU Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, as we show here. As I noted, Jason Smith from the 8th District of Missouri chairs the House Ways and Means Committee, trade laws, tariff laws, customs regulations, things like that. Well, they met under the same roof. And after that, Sefcovic, who had already been to the United States more than once this past spring, he spoke to the American Enterprise Institute, you might recall, while AEI, the Enterprise Institute, sent a emissary to Bilderberg this year. From Bilderberg, Sefcovic went over to Alberta, Canada, to the G7 and met with Jameson Greer, the trade representative of the U.S. On the side. And he also met with Greer earlier in the year when he visited the U.S. And Robert Lighthizer, who was Trump's trade representative during Trump 1.0, he was also at Bilderberg. And at any rate, what appears to be happening is that with a July 9 deadline being imposed by the Trump administration, the transatlantic allies are rushing to clinch a deal before Washington hits the EU bloc with tariffs of up to 50%, 50%. And Trump's import duties would affect about 70% of EU exports to the US. So it appears that's why Jason Smith was mainly at Bilderberg, to talk with Sefcovic and provide input and collaborate a bit so Sefcovic could go to the G7 and try and stem the tide of these tariffs affecting a lot of EU imports going into the US, and doing that at the G7. Now, another dimension of this, of course, is accountability. And Jason Smith, I did a pretty in-depth search. There seems to be no indication that any of the Missouri media, either newspaper or broadcast, they appear to have no idea that their beloved congressman went to this elite confab in Stockholm known as Bilderberg. And something like that happened in 2018, which is the last time I was in the UK. John Hickenlooper, the Colorado governor, went to Bilderberg, and he got cited by the State Ethics Commission. And 2025 is the 5-year anniversary of Hickenlooper being cited by the Ethics Commission in Colorado precisely for attending Bilderberg, among some other misdeeds. And here's a little bit of what that report had to say. Hickenlooper had paid $1,500 for travel and lodging, but he also enjoyed luxury accommodations that were far beyond that cost. He should have realized that he was receiving a gift from Fiat Chrysler, the sponsor. There's one other call-out quote from that report, if we might show that. The commissioners, the Ethics Commission report also said, unanimously found that Hickenlooper had violated the gift ban with his attendance of the Bilderberg meetings in Turin, Italy, and that was again in 2018. So the all-important question now, as I'll show here, come to find out Missouri also has an ethics commission, And I've already placed a call to them and some of the Missouri media to see if they're going to take an interest, or at least see if they're already looking at Jason Smith's participation at Bilderberg and whether something similar to what happened to Hickenlooper might come down to ensure some accountability here. So there'll be much more to report on that very soon.
Thanks, Mark.
So back to you guys.
Yeah. Patrick, what have you got on this?
Well, on the Bilderberg front, if you're looking for a good sort of wrap up, a good review of what happened at Bilderberg, a great summary, along with original photos as well, we've got this up on 21stcenturywire.com, a review of Bilderberg 2025, AI, Drones, Technocracy, and the Transatlantic Alliance. This is by journalist Hannah Borno, and this is up on our website right now. Fantastic summary and analysis, as well as naming all the names and what everybody got up to, and some great photographs as well from her and some of her colleagues. So we've got that up at 21 Wire. And as it goes, this is another article that people, I think, need to also take a look at here. And this is on The Guardian. This is by Charlie Skelton, who's been covering Bilderberg for a very long time as well. China haunts Bilderberg talks as usual suspects plot world domination. This is a fantastic article, and it just shows you the pivot towards Asia, along with all the fifth generation total warfare, the AI, the drones, etc. So if you really want to kind of get a good sort of rounded scope of what went on and what this meeting really has been all about this year, those are two articles I highly recommend. Hopefully we'll have those in the show notes.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Now let's